want, but
well,
what's your plan?
Gary actually puts these together, but I think we ought to start right off with GM. Mm-hmm. You know, everybody's talking about it. Gary also had Geneva Unplugged.
Cool.
You know,
I can do that one too.
And I think that ties into the whole coronavirus discussion.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, if we get to it, sales. Sales didn't look bad at all.
No. Yeah, I'm weak on sales. I wasn't paying a lot of attention.
I wasn't paying a lot of attention either. No, I know. I work for an organization that does sales, but that's a different place in the office.
So on a daily selling rate basis, exactly the same as last year.
16.8.
I didn't see the SAR.
16.8.
Was it?
Gary? Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right, fine.
Well, but holding is good.
We may wend our way into different things.
That's okay.
I found some other
as long
things
as
over here
I'm
that are
grounded. I'm good. I can do that.
And very much business oriented that you'll be able to.
Okay. I can do this. It'll be fine. I'm still trying to process what I think of certain of the cars that I saw or the vehicles that I saw yesterday, so it'll be fun.
Yeah. I like that big Cadillac, though. Some others thought, I think Daron wrote something that they got to go back.
Celestique.
Celestique.
The IQ thing that they're doing with Cadillac names, I'm not quite sure about.
Yeah.
I was talking to Steve Carlisle after they. Of course, we should probably wait until.
Yeah. Do it then.
Yep.
It's fine.
Let's talk about Bob Seger.
Bob Seger.
So you poo-poo his later work. All the early stuff is where it's at. Mm-hmm. Okay.
After you get beyond, back in '72, or smoking OPs, that's basically it.
Yeah.
Except for one song on that. On Smoking OPs was, I'll think of it. I'll probably blurt it out in the middle of the show.
Yeah. Apropos of nothing, you'll just shout out the name. But you can't even find those anymore. I mean, I looked.
It's not on Spotify?
Well, maybe. I looked on Amazon to see if you could actually get
Old Seger.
Gone.
Yeah. See, I'm Boston. He was big in Boston, but it was the Night Moves album, and that was where I was living at the time, and that's where I became aware of him. Night Moves, because he was huge there.
Watch Autoline After Hours live at Autoline.tv every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 12 p.m. Pacific. You can subscribe to this podcast for free by searching for Autoline in iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, your journey, our passion. Borg Warner, propulsion solutions that support a clean, energy-efficient world. And by DIA MTS, for advanced manufacturing machinery and lightweight components.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Autoline After Hours. Now, before we get into the discussion of the show, and boy, we got a lot of good topics to get into today, you got to see that Gary and I are rather like clothes models today. And the reason that we're wearing Autoline swag is that we're officially launching Autoline merchandise, and you can get your own Autoline After Hours shirts, sweatshirts, mugs, stickers, and socks. Wait till you see our socks. Yeah, well, that's on the screen. Wait till you see them on our legs here. So you can go to our website. The link is there, www.autoline.tv. But we also have a shelf on our YouTube channel below with all our videos, including this one right here. So check out where you can get all. Oh, there it is. Now it's up. Now, okay, point again, Gary. There, yeah, down there. And you can get 25% off all this merchandise for the next week here. And check out the socks. I mean, the socks, even I'm impressed by the socks. Okay, let's get to the real part of the show.
Exciting opening, and you know, I'm going to like bring it down a little bit. I found this trivia in automotive history today that something happened in 1929 on this very day.
No. Stock market crash.
No, that was in October.
Oh, that's right.
29.
Well, we got the guy from Reuters here. He knows.
Well,
29.
Somebody died.
So must have been the introduction of the Ford Model A.
Nope.
Oh.
David Buick died.
Oh.
The man who established Buick, age 74.
goodness.
Well, he's doing some hard living, I think.
Yeah.
74 was an advanced age back
for
then.
them.
Well,
29, 70, you made it to 74. You were
now he'd
pretty
be the
good.
youngest person running for the Democratic nomination.
Exactly.
All right, so we got to
Well, wait a minute. First we gotta introduce-
that young voice we just heard
Is
Christie Schweinsberg.
from Ward's Intelligence.
Yes, great to be here, guys. Thank you. I love the shirts. Very snazzy.
Good. And we've got Joe White from Reuters. Good having
be
you back here, too,
It's
Joe.
great to be here.
Okay, now you may proceed, Mr. Vasilash.
Well, so all four of us happen to be at the Design Dome at the General Motors Technical Center yesterday morning, where we heard from Mary Barra, we heard from Mark Royce, and then we heard on basically a small group basis the entire team of designers and engineers that are behind General Motors electric. I don't even want to say electrification because that
No,
sounds
it's
sort of
electric
like
vehicle blitz.
Yeah.
Battery.
Well, they called it Battery Day. That
Right.
tells you what it's all about.
More than that, but go ahead, Gary. Yeah.
No, so here's my question to you guys. Okay, so they brought in lots of journalists from all over the country to see what they were doing, and Mary Barra basically is saying, you know what, this is real, we're going to make this affordable, we're going to make this accessible, we're going to make profits on when we sell these things, and here's an array of vehicles that we're just not showing. I mean, some of them are concepts, but a lot of these things will be on the road within a couple of years. And I just want to get your reactions. I mean, like, what are you guys thinking? I mean, is this the real deal?
As a consumer, I'm super excited. As an electrification fan, I'm super excited. I have some reservations about some elements of the plan, but on the whole, I think it's a really thorough, great lineup. You've got vehicles in every segment to, I think, appease every type of buyer. You just have to get some people over that hump of, oh my God, I've got to plug this in, you know, and
Yeah, I think it was. No, I thought it was impressive. Again, there are certain things that I, was less impressed with than other things. I mean, I think the battery technology investment is substantial, and for a mainstream car maker, I mean, I think GM is doing the right thing by sort of kind of ending whatever internal debate there was about whether it was smart to go electric. I mean, that's clearly over, and the dedicated electric vehicle architecture that they showed, sort of the skateboard kind of thing that they've developed, which, by the way, they were showing that kind of thing 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, they're at some risk of kind of being Xerox PARC, of inventing the graphical user interface and then putting it away. And I don't think anybody wants that. So that's all great. I don't know about certain of the vehicles in terms of just the styling. I mean, some of them weren't for me. I don't know if that's really all that relevant, whether they're for me or not. But yeah, I thought that, and then the $20 billion figure for investment, that's serious intent.
So that's by 2025 they'll be.
Yeah, by 2025. Yeah, but I think it's basically $3 billion a year. So it seems like roughly half of what they spend in cap. It's equivalent to roughly half of what they spend in capex. It's probably not exactly that way, right? I'm sure it's more complex,
No,
but it's in that region.
$7-8 billion a year typically on capex.
And so anyway, to get to the point, I do think that. Look, whether or not GM's probably behind Tesla in certain aspects, or possibly many aspects of electrification technology, but that may not be the real point. The point is they're going to be ahead of most other competitors in the space, with the possible exception, or not with the possible, with the exception of Volkswagen, which kind of, for its own reasons, has gotten to this place already about a year or two or three ahead. But yeah, that was my take.
Well, okay, so John, what do you think about the fact that basically what they're doing here is vertical integration of their battery and motor technology?
I find that fascinating. I find it very, very interesting. In fact, I'd say two things about it. Not only vertically integrated, what they've said is they want to source everything out of North America, components and raw materials.
For the North American product.
For the North American product, right. They'll probably do something different in China, but this is almost a subtle message to China of, yeah, you're important to us, but if push comes to shove, we don't need you.
Well, I don't want to jump ahead of ourselves, but I mean, the supply chain security issue there.
Yeah.
Right, exactly that.
The current situation, I think, has probably driven them to that decision more than maybe even a few months ago.
Meaning the coronavirus.
Yes.
Well, and
yeah.
trade, and also,
National security?
Yeah.
Yeah, all that.
Okay, but one of the things I wonder about is they're going to be opening a plant that they're spending $2.3 billion on in Ohio with LG Chem, which is their battery supplier, but they're working with this battery supplier.
Joint venture
partner is
partners.
probably a legitimate term in this case, but go ahead.
Okay, and the question that I have is that is it a good idea for them to lock themselves up with one battery supplier
Yeah.
when someone, Panasonic may come up with a solid state battery next week?
But look, they addressed that because remember, they said the way they've got these modules, which are like the boxes where you can put these pouches in. They said, hey, we don't even have to go with the, here we got this thing going up of how they fill the battery tray. But what they said is, hey, we've got pouches. We can go prismatic. We can go to any different kind of chemistry because the electronics are embedded in those boxes, which they call modules, and that can send a signal to the computer that tells it, hey, this kind of battery with this kind of chemistry, and just keep on running.
They were actually, I mean, they were surprisingly open, I think, about the ways in which they're experimenting with different chemistries, right? And those have different properties, but their system can adapt. And so you're right. I think this may be a different kind of business, though, than in the past, where, if you're going to get the best technology, you've got to commit. And you've got to have actual partnerships with suppliers as opposed to low bid, because maybe low bid isn't the way to go.
Right.
But I thought what you did, it reminded me of the Nissan situation immediately, where they were locked in with, was it AESC, which was a joint venture of theirs with Panasonic or NEC, and then they ended up owning this business where the batteries were not as advanced.
Right, and then they're like, what do we do with it? And then we got to sell that business. And, it didn't work out so well.
Just to finish that thought, I asked one of the GM guys, why even go with LG? Why not just do everything in-house? He goes, John, they make more cells than anybody in the world. Why wouldn't you want to partner with them?
Right.
And plus, I mean, my sense is that relationship, it probably predates the Bolt, but certainly they've been working with LG for a while.
Yeah.
I suspect, it seems like there's probably some comfort there.
Right.
But in China, they'll have different suppliers probably in the Chinese market.
Cattle or someone.
And I guess I wouldn't sell GM that short to think that they won't keep their eyes open and make sure that LG, is giving them the best that they can deliver.
So basically, we saw a Bolt with a longer range, which pretty much looked like the Bolt with
That we know,
That we know.
But then the Bolt EUV, which is
A slightly longer Bolt.
right, which they're calling the Sport Utility
Right.
Bolt. But what I found interesting though is I don't know if they've changed this or not, but it used to be the Bolt itself was identified as being a crossover on.
They tried to get away with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why.
Nobody
because
believes
They're both hatchbacks.
Okay, and then there were so there were two Buick crossovers.
Yeah, one medium and small.
Ish.
Yeah.
And one Chevy that looked like a Blazer.
Yeah.
Or I would have said more Equinox size.
Equinox.
But
Equinox
we could probably
size
argue
laser
that,
front end.
right?
The Electronox.
Yeah. And then the Cadillac Lyriq
Which is really cool.
compact crossover.
Yeah.
And then there was there another?
Two Hummers.
Yeah.
A truck and
so an SUT.
Basically, they're recreating the Hummer lineup
Right.
in electric form.
Yeah,
I mean,
SUT and SUV.
Yeah, and if you want to, if you picture a Hummer from the early 2000s, they look a lot like that. They haven't strayed too far from that concept. It's not a Cybertruck.
And then one other vehicle, and I'm going to let you guys pronounce the name because I can't possibly even get there. A hand-built luxury car that they'll be coming out with for Cadillac.
Yeah.
And what is it called?
Celestique.
Celestique. There's Lyrique and Celestique. So there's some sort of name plus IQ at the end thing going on with Cadillac naming conventions.
And they've had it for a while. Remember the Evoque, which was with a Q?
So I mean, anyway, I looked at it and I said, so this is what the El Dorado looks like in the 23rd century.
I was hoping it was going to be a CL. Remember, was it called the CL? Or
CL,
the yeah, remember that concept was so cool.
Christie, what did you think of that one?
The hand-built Cadillac? I didn't get too close of a look at it. I mean, that looked like sort of a Tesla Model S play by them, where they're going for that really, really well-heeled luxury buyer. I wasn't that crazy about the profile of it. It kind of has like an 80s hatchback Porsche thing going on in the back. It's very big, too.
It's very big.
It's got to be as long as a current-day Escalade.
It
is.
Yeah.
It's
big car.
And so, I had the same issue. I sort of looked at it, and I thought, the first thing I thought, and I'm sure that I know pretty clearly that the people at GM did not appreciate this, I was thinking, that's the BMW 550 GT concept, sort of this big luxury hatchback, which didn't do that well in this market. Yeah, it was sort of like A7, except really a lot bigger than that. It was.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I'm not sure quite who it's for, since the luxury market is going SUV, but
Yeah, it kind of reminded me, when they mentioned hand-built in Detroit, I was thinking Shinola. Like hopping on that bandwagon.
Oh, because it's made in Detroit, sort of
Yeah,
thing, the
yeah.
slogan that they had. Yeah, I have the sense from talking to some people that they may actually be building that at the tech center.
That'd be
yeah,
cool.
I wouldn't doubt it.
By the guys who
prototype
are-
When
shop.
Yeah, the guys in the
McElroy
model
said
shop.
it, he said it's going to be local, and he was saying that at the
And
tech
they
center.
kept saying very nearby. But one of the interesting to me was I was talking to Steve Carlisle, because
Who runs Cadillac?
runs Cadillac, and they had made the announcement that Cadillac will be their lead electric brand going forward, and that in 2030 they'll have a showroom of electric vehicles. And I said, so Steve, does this mean that if someone goes to a Cadillac dealership in 2030, there will be no internal combustion engine vehicles? And he goes, there'll still be some.
Yeah.
Yeah, there will. There absolutely will. I mean, well, it's absolutely. Unless they're legislated out of existence. But look, there was an E-Escalade there. Let's not forget. I mean, they didn't call it an Escalade, but it was essentially an E-Escalade.
Right.
But I expect that again. I mean, barring a regulatory thing or a change in culture that is can't foresee, that there will be an internal combustion Escalade as well. Probably cost a lot of money, because they'll need to get it up to regulatory spec, right? And that's probably a whole different show. But
Yeah. Hey, before you get to that, hold that breath, because we're going to take a quick break right now and give a shout out to our good friends at Borg Warner.
The world is changing at an ever-increasing pace. No matter what the mode of transportation, there is always the need for an efficient propulsion system. And that's exactly what Borg Warner has been doing since the earliest days of the automotive industry. We create innovative mobility technologies that reduce energy consumption and emissions while improving performance. Our proven track record has made us an industry leader in forward-looking propulsion solutions for combustion, hybrid, and electric vehicles.
All right, we're back talking about GM Battery Day, and Gary, I cut you off there.
So we talked about the vehicles. Mainly they were crossover utilities and big
SUVs,
things
yeah.
like Hummers. And I was talking to Mike Simcoe, who's the head of global design for General Motors, and I said, Mike, as I look around this room, I said, if we were talking about a whole suite of electric vehicles, and this were 20 years ago, we would be imagining something that would look far different. I mean, all of these vehicles look like vehicles. And I said, why is that? Why is that the case? And he said, well, we really don't want to have customers learn how to like our vehicles, which I thought was a very interesting thing. But I mean, is there something to, you mentioned the Model S, and I'm thinking about, the Cybertruck, which we've talked about, right? So here you have arguably the leading EV company saying, we're going to make things that don't look like, or that do look like people need to learn to like them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the right strategy?
Well, Tesla's been able to earn the right, I think, to make something really oddball. And it still remains to be seen whether the Cybertruck is really going to look like that. I think it's going to, for regulatory purposes and like pedestrian crash rules, it's going to have to get watered down. I think it's the right strategy. I really enjoyed everything I saw yesterday design-wise. I think they nailed it, including with the Hummers. I'm just realizing how many of those are still on the road. The old Hummers, they're
You've
really
seen more
all
of them
over
lately.
the place.
They seem to have come out of their barn.
Yeah, and I've been traveling lately, and I see them all over the country, and I think it's a good strategy to stick with that body style.
Yeah, so I thought about that yesterday too. I had kind of the same reaction. I said, look, the adventurousness of the designs was mostly on the inside, where and GM's taken some hits, including I think from me, for not being sort of fast enough and aggressive enough with connectivity in this first iteration of the current Silverado. Now it does seem like that message actually had gotten through, and you're seeing these very innovative uses of curved LED screens. I mean, that Lyric has a 34-inch screen. And it's a good thing too, because I think in a couple of years, that'll be kind of what you see from everybody, that sort of technology. So I did see the tension there. I mean, I think there must be some concern, like if they have tried at GM, as we all know, to kind of shock and amaze people with out there design, and it hasn't gone so well. And other companies, frankly, have done the same thing. They've tried to shock and awe with out there design, and left their customer bases too far behind. Yeah, Christie, you're right. I think Tesla can get away with that, maybe. I can understand why at GM there'd be a little more like, look, the battery technology is a revolution enough for a lot of our customers.
And I just wondered if part of it isn't that either Royce or Barra used the word General Motors might, so basically saying we're gonna roll this out.
Yeah.
In massive numbers. We're gonna make this something that is going to be completely.
Can I just say, this resonated with me because last fall I went to Germany and I visited and did the whole tour of the Volkswagen electric vehicle complex, or machine, and which is really what it came to me as, and Volkswagen has a very similar kind of point of view, which is like, okay, fine, we're late to this party, blah, 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 but we have a massive industrial machine. We know how to build stuff in enormous scale. We got all the capital resources you could possibly imagine, and so don't count us out. And I heard the same message yesterday. I think execution will matter, but yeah, I mean, they do have that.
So to the point of the Volkswagen MEB platform, and so we saw General Motors' third generation platform yesterday. And I was thinking about how soon we forget the alliance that Ford and Volkswagen have on EVs, and Ford announcing that they'll be building an electric transit vehicle for the European market. And I was thinking, gee, who's going to have more scale here? Will General Motors have more scale, or will Volkswagen/Ford? What do you think, John?
Well, Ford and VW together, that's a lot of volume right there. But I think the key difference between them is Volkswagen's doing all these almost entry-level cars, certainly middle market passenger cars. I'm not convinced at all it can make money on those things. I'm much more impressed with GM's strategy of starting out with Cadillac, going to Hummer, doing trucks, full-size SUVs, crossovers, where there's some margin at least, where they can do some stuff with pricing. Because they talked about when they launched this new battery plant in Lordstown, Ohio next year, they're going to be at $100 per kilowatt hour. But that's at the cell level. Add at least another $25 on top of that for the pack. And I got to believe Volkswagen is at least the same. I doubt it's underneath that. And so with a 60 kilowatt hour battery at $125, you're still looking at just the battery costing $7,500.
Yeah.
And I think Volkswagen's strategy is actually far riskier. I like GM's strategy. They're in the US or North America at least, or not outside of China. They're going to have 2 completely dedicated assembly plants to EVs, Detroit Hamtramck and Orion. And that's the way to really take cost out. In fact, we got a question here from Jonathan Brown, if GM will share production facilities. You don't want to do that with electrics. You want to dedicate it to electrics, because if you do that, you can take anywhere from 1 out of 5 workers to 1 out of 4 workers out of the assembly plant altogether and get costs down.
Okay, does he mean they'll share with other OEMs? Because one of the things I thought was interesting regarding that battery plant was Mary did say that they would be able to sell batteries to other vehicle manufacturers and ride-sharing services.
Well, right, yeah, she did say that, and don't forget, they have this partnership with Honda, which is seems to be getting deeper as the days go by. So there's one possibility. I don't know, but I mean that's one sort of possibility. And you're right, and they sort of kind of have a relationship with Lyft, and could have a relationship with Uber if they so desired. So right, I mean the other thing is that electric vehicles and they didn't show this yesterday, but electric vehicles as sort of B2B products are, that the economics are different, right? And so that could be another way to go.
Right.
And they did have a Cruise Origin there, so that
Oh,
would
yeah.
be to
Right,
the point
yeah.
of.
Cruise Origin.
That's what we should point out. And maybe I misread Jonathan's question. All the vehicles that GM showed yesterday will be built off the same platform, so to speak, all in the exact same plant. And it includes the Cruise Origin shuttle bus.
I mean, I think if you look at the skateboard concept that they're using, and which other companies are using as well, I mean, it is kind of like back to 1957. You know, it's a body on frame kind of a thing. You drop stuff on, right? Drop stuff on top of it at will.
Yeah, you know, I thought it was interesting. Do you realize that it's unibody construction?
For the body.
Right.
But
So for example, if you look at the Hummer SUT,
Yeah.
it has a sail panel, and so someone asked Simcoe about, saying, well, gee whiz, the Honda Ridgeline had the sail panel, and nobody really took that seriously because they didn't think it was a real truck, and so they had to change the design to, have a more box back there, right? And Mike's like, well, no, we need that. And I said, well, you could just take that off, right? He goes, well, no, we need that. That's structural. That's because I thought that basically, you would just like plop, in any top hat you wanted, and it wouldn't be, like an egg that you need all of the elements without it being broken. That surprised me, but I digress here. All right.
well, I was sorry, you were going to say, Christie?
I'm really excited about the creation of frunks.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to have a frunk, and I think that's just more frunks.
Yeah.
A Hummer with the cooler frunk, the tailgate, the front gate,
Yeah,
Have a
Ford is
giant
doing the
Yeti
same
cooler in the
thing.
front of your.
giant Yeti brand cooler.
Yeah,
with the-
I'm sure that they're going to do that. Okay, one more thing about General Motors. So earlier this week they announced that they're going to add 3,500 charging stations at GM facilities, and right now they have 900. Is this a further sign of their seriousness? And I asked that because one of the questions that was asked yesterday by Henry Payne, who Tesla owner and serial person in a chair here, asked, pointing out that back in the day, not all that long ago, cellulosic ethanol was going to be General Motors' fuel of choice, and that henceforth we'd all be driving, what was it? Live green, go yellow, or something like that.
Yes.
And that all sort of went away, right?
Yeah.
And so is this all perhaps going to possibly go away, or is the stake been driven into the ground?
I think there's enough momentum behind battery electrics, thanks to Tesla, that no, and there's too much investment now. I mean, you can't just.
No, I agree with all. I think. First of all, I do think the government regulation will kick in. I mean, it is everywhere else, and I think it will in the United States at some point in time. Number two, I also think that Tesla has just set a bar, particularly in premium end of the market. That's what a luxury car is supposed to look like. That level of connectivity and sort of sophistication of technology. I think they got to do it.
Here's the key difference between the cellulosic and now. Cellulosic ethanol never materialized.
It's vaporware from day one.
And so GM was counting on these refiners to be able to produce it, and they couldn't do it at a cost that was competitive. Had it happened, I think it would have been brilliant. It would have gone. I was all in on it. It didn't happen. Whereas if you look now, we've got the grid, we've got all this battery investment. GM doesn't have to just rely on another industry to deliver.
Yeah. I was going to say that also there's been 10 years of lithium-ion, almost 10 years now of lithium-ion batteries in vehicles in use, and not just General Motors, but as a whole, we're seeing some really promising longevity with some of these battery packs. I mean, some of these Teslas, like in rideshare fleets in California, have like 500,000-600,000 miles on them with the original battery pack. I think there's an estimate out there from the American Chemistry Council that some of these packs could last like 20 years, potentially in a vehicle, before you need to change them out. And I mean, probably at that point, nobody's going to want the car anyway, So.
Well, and don't forget, you got the giant. I mean, it's on its back right now, but the Chinese market is gigantic. And although we could come to this, they've had some stumbles of late with their electric vehicle policy and their electric vehicle sales. think the Chinese, market will drive that and I mean, honestly, the cellulosic ethanol market. I asked somebody when that was sort of a thing. I went to some national lab or something, and I was asking about this. And I said, so what is this, like brewing beer? And the answer was, yeah, except cellulose doesn't have any sugar in it, so there's not really a whole lot to work with. And since I brew beer as a hobby, I kind of got that. It was science I could actually grasp. And I thought, oh, this isn't going to work. And sure enough, it didn't.
So, okay, so I'm going to throw cold water on what you guys just said. And so Carlos Tavares, whom we've talked about on the show, who turned around PSA, he said in a conference call this week that electric vehicles are currently only purchased by, and I'm using air quotes here, green addicts, close quote, and lack mainstream appeal.
Well,
Well, so first of all, Carlos Tavares, he's great. He's a national treasure. I think they can. Mary Barra and Mark Royce and Carlos Tavares can both be right in this case, because without subsidies, it is true, and I think Tavares made this point after he said that. Right now, without subsidies, electric vehicle sales fall hard, and in the premium market, it's different because rich people definitely like electric vehicles and they can afford to have more than one vehicle. And this point was made yesterday by the GM folks that the challenge is for people who are going to have a primary vehicle, and that's they're going to buy a car. That's what they can afford. They're not there. A lot of people aren't there yet, and Tavares also, I think, has a political message that he's sending to the European governments, which is be careful what you wish for. Because, if you make us go all electric and our profit margins go to hell and we simplify these platforms so you only need, like 5 people in a factory instead of 5,000, that's not going to, you don't want that, folks. So but the bluntness with which he put that was kind of bracing.
Hey, wait, we got to take another quick commercial break here. We're going to get right back to that. Hold that thought, Gary. DIA, MTS.
Whether they're electric, autonomous, or connected, tomorrow's cars must be developed quickly with the highest precision, and they have to be lightweight. DIA MTS can provide what you need, from advanced manufacturing machinery to lightweight components. Learn more at our website at www.d-iamts.com or visit our showroom right next to Metro Airport in Detroit.
All right, Gary.
Okay, so staying with the electric theme, so yesterday Ford announced an electric transit van. Was the timing coincidental?
I'm going to say it was and give them the benefit of the doubt because
You're so kind, Christie.
there's so much news coming out every single day on electrification. I think you can't sit on this stuff so as not to look like you're trying to glom on or over. I mean, there's no way really that can overshadow what GM announced yesterday, but I don't think their intention was to take any glow away from GM.
What do you think, John?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They planned this weeks ago. They knew when the GM battery day was coming. They're scrambling. What can we announce?
It's been on the calendar for a while.
But wait, wouldn't it have been in Geneva?
Would the electric transit van?
Yeah.
I don't think they were going to be in Geneva.
I don't know if Ford was going to be there or not.
I don't remember either. I don't remember either.
But I mean,
anyway,
the electric transit van, I mean,
But it's going to be carrying a lot of packages,
if
presumably.
it had been the Mach-E,
Yeah.
then you'd say they're really trying to step on them.
So I'll stick up for Ford just this much on this. They're under a lot of pressure from, just as GM is, they're under a lot of pressure from an investor community to say, okay, what's your plan, guys? And I think with the transit van, the electric, which they're going to have in North America and Europe, I think that with that, the point of that to me was to say, look, for us, electric vehicles are not only, or even not necessarily primarily, a consumer play. It's a commercial play. We think, and I think there's some sense to that. I mean, that businesses can deal with the costs of the premium of an electric vehicle in a different way from a consumer. And Ford does, Ford has all kinds of issues, right? But they do have a super strong commercial vehicle franchise. So, I think for Jim Farley and to come out and basically say, guess what, we're going to try to play to our strengths here, it's probably a message they needed to send. And that's kind of what I took away from that.
So the Geneva Motor Show was mentioned in passing. The Geneva Motor Show, which
Never
didn't
was.
happen
Yeah.
and will not happen. So does this say anything about the future of auto shows? Because it seems to me that there were a number of car introductions and they were all introduced, yet no one was necessarily standing in Geneva.
A lot
So-
lower cost.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is definitely going to harm the auto show model even more because the cost savings have to be enormous
Yeah.
to just do the online introductions. It's bad for us because we can't scrum and talk to executives and get answers to our questions, but they don't care about that anyway. I mean, they've got a message that they're trying to put out there, and you can do that a lot easier without all these pesky analysts and journalists around, right?
Yeah, and also save money. I mean, look, which I think it may be that is the tip of the iceberg. That the real issue is that, especially because you've had almost complete collapse in the last month or two of the Chinese auto market. The coronavirus situation hopefully will be not a permanent issue for the globe, but it's going to be a reasonably bad temporary one. And so, you're seeing all these companies clamp down on travel and all the rest of it, and they've got enough problems with electrification costs and all the rest. I did a virtual roundtable with Ola Kalenius, CEO of Daimler, and when I got in, perfectly fine, probably got as much out of him as he would have if we'd have been, live and in person. But I didn't have to fly to Geneva. I could go, after we were done, I could go back to doing what I was doing and go home, at the end of the day. It was 6 o'clock where he was. He could go home and have dinner with his family. I can totally imagine that Mr. Kalenius said, you know what, that works for me. I got my message across, and I got to spend the evening at home, reading my briefing papers and how we're going to fix our business.
So what will the effect of the coronavirus be on things like supply chains? I mean, I don't know that we've felt it yet. I mean, in terms of the lack of availability of things in this country, but it's got to be happening at some point.
There are people working, right, feverishly and furiously as we sit here to make sure that we don't feel it in the United States. And I guess for the good of the economy, I hope they succeed. It's going to be a close call. That's my takeaway right now.
Yeah, there's enough inventory in the pipeline that we haven't seen it in stores and stuff like that. But there was a thing on the news the other night showing the port of Los Angeles. And usually there's all these ships in the little sort of breakwater area. There's cranes moving all this stuff around. As you look out into the ocean, there's ships all the way to the horizon. There's nothing there now. I mean, like nothing.
Yeah.
So we're eating up all the inventory that's been on rail heads and in rail cars and on semi trucks and warehouses. And when we use that up, we're going to feel the pinch immediately.
Yeah, it was interesting last week when Ford announced that it was restricting even domestic travel for its people. So what effect would that have on a company like Ford, Joe?
Well, I mean, some things can get done over the phone or on Skype or video conference, and I'm sure a lot of things are going to get done that way. But certain other kinds of things, you kind of got to be there, right? And so I imagine it's going to gum up the works to some degree, and it's certainly not good for large chunks of the economy to have no travel happening. A lot of people work for Delta, and if they're not doing anything, that's bad. So I think it's pretty uncertain. I mean, if it lasts for a couple, 3 weeks, that's one thing. If it lasts for 3 or 4 months, that's another. You get half a year going down the drain. I think that's why the stock market is not having a good couple of weeks.
All right, so prediction time. Will there be a New York Auto Show?
No.
I think not.
I don't think so either, because corporations are telling their employees they can't travel.
Yeah.
So
Plus, there's an outbreak in New York, and I think, no.
it'd probably get canceled. Going back to the Geneva show and what will the impact be, I'm sure all the automakers right now are assiduously studying what kind of media coverage did we get, and how does that compare to when there's a real live show, and if the virtual show viewership is really good. Ooh, to your point, Christie, that hurts.
Yeah.
That hurts the auto
It might be
shows.
better, actually, because when you're there, you're being pulled in a million different directions, and you've got dinners to go, multiple dinners every night to go to, and without any of that stuff, you can just focus on the writing.
But the one key is public days, because I still maintain there is real viability for auto shows for public days. The public still likes to go and see the cars and sit in the seats.
I think in major consumer markets, that's true. I mean, New York is an example. They may well cancel the New York Auto Show this year, but I'm not sure they'll cancel it forever because New York is a giant consumer market. The LA Auto Show is a similar kind of a deal. It's a giant consumer market. But yeah, I mean, look, this trend has been, even before all this happened with the coronavirus, you'd see more and more companies, and General Motors in particular, moving away from auto shows as venues for launching products. And again, from just Googling around this morning to kind of try to get some sense of what people were saying about the different vehicles and things that GM showed, they got a ton of coverage, a ton. And there's all kinds of chatter about these Cadillac models and this and that and the other. And they basically just had their own auto show. And they didn't need a venue like Geneva to get all the publicity they probably wanted.
So do you think the Detroit Auto Dealers Association, which puts on the North American International Auto Show, which will be in early June?
Yeah.
Third week, I think.
Yeah.
Late June?
Mid-June.
Mid-June. Cut the difference.
Yeah.
Are they nervous?
Probably. Probably.
Should they be?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of overreaction happening. Well, some of it's the right amount of reaction, some of it's overreaction. I mean, the advantage is we're still a ways out from June, so anything could happen. But and also the advantage for them is there's going to be all this stuff outdoors, so it's not going to be people like right on top of each other inside Cobo Hall in dry winter heat. But yeah, I think they should be worried.
What do you think, John?
Yeah, no, they should be worried. Look, a lot of people make a lot of money on these shows. There's a lot of investment in all this. This is going to hurt a lot of people, not just the Detroit Auto Dealers Association. Lots of people are going to get hurt if this show doesn't happen. So it's important that it does. But let's see what happens. I think we'll see. This coronavirus could still explode and be far worse than anything that we've ever seen before in our lifetimes. But I've been on some TV shows with some disease and health experts, and their message essentially is, look, this is like a bad flu season. Most people are going to have mild symptoms if they come down with it. It's the elderly and people with prior health issues that are really at risk. So I'm not trying to, belittle that. But look, how many people die from all kinds of other stuff and we just go on with our everyday lives?
Yeah.
I think we're just going to get used to the coronavirus.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think the bigger threat to the Detroit show, is that the companies will pull back support for events, pull back support for exhibits, and they'll do that because they basically are taking a beating, now in different markets and for various reasons, and they're going to say, you know what? We're cutting budgets here.
Okay, so basically they're losing money now, and they're going to look at
Absolutely.
their spend going forward.
Oh, absolutely. Continental, is a big supplier that we all know and have a big operation here in Detroit. Continental just announced a nasty profit warning, and they're basically their chief executive and others are saying, yeah, we're slashing budgets and we're going to cut costs, €1 billion, €1 billion, a whole bunch of money. So they're in lockdown mode at Continental, and obviously that's just one company, but they're not so differently situated from everybody else in the industry that they're having everybody else is great and they're the only company that's going to have these issues. I don't think so. So I think that's to come in the next several weeks, is that you're going to see a whole bunch of profit warnings followed by people saying we're screwing down on costs. And Yeah, and then things like the Detroit Auto Show start to become at risk. Not that I'm not saying that because I wish the Detroit Auto Show ill. I mean,
No.
for all you out there, I mean, I'm not. I don't.
We live here.
Yeah.
I live here. I
We want it to be fantastic.
I want it to be great.
Yeah.
I really do. But you
You got to face reality.
got to face
too.
reality.
Yeah. Hey, look, before you get into another topic, we're going to take another quick break and give a shout out to our good friends at Bridgestone. Okay, we're back, Gary.
Okay, so while we don't officially have a number, I have a number. and this will be very easy. Okay, so Joe is just talking about money. So I'm going to give you a dollar figure, and this is related to someone in the auto industry. Okay, you're going to guess it. I can
I know
tell.
who it
I can
is.
tell.
I know
Oh,
who it
you
is.
know who
Probably
it is.
not, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, no, I haven't said it yet. Come on. $179 million.
Can I say it?
Of course you can say it.
Reed Bigland.
No.
Oh,
We'll get to him.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's right at the tip. I can't.
I know you were going to get it.
I can't remember. Oh gosh, I can't
Can
remember.
you give us hints?
the only automotive
It's a
person
fine,
I
right?
can
See?
Oh,
He's getting closer. He's getting, yes,
it's a
yes.
fine.
It's got to be Elon Musk.
No,
No. Is it FCA? No.
no,
Gone.
no.
It's a fine. I can't remember for what. You'd have to tell me.
Automotive.
So it's Anthony Lewandowski.
Oh, right. He went bankrupt for, yeah.
Who had to pay because there was a trade secret dispute when he
I was
left
just looking
Google,
at this.
and he and another gentleman started OTTO, which was a self-driving truck operation, and so. But the thing is he filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and apparently he doesn't have that much money in assets. I mean, not that the man is by any stretch of the imagination.
He has several tens of millions of assets, according to what I read, and that's all
Right,
coming
but I mean,
back to me now that I've blown the question. But yeah, he was a multi-millionaire. He is or was a multi-millionaire. But yeah, he can't afford to pay 179 million bucks. Yeah.
So on this theme of the self-driving theme, so Waymo got an investment of $2.25 billion this week from a variety of operations, including Magna International and AutoNation. So two interesting things I think about this is that one, I think this is the first time that Waymo has gotten outside investment.
I think you're right.
It is.
So outside, in Alphabet, which is the company that owns Google, which owns, they also are part of the $2.25 billion. Okay, so number one, you have the outside investments in this, and two, having a major auto supplier, which is basically like Continental scale, which also, perhaps not uncoincidentally, makes vehicles for automakers at Magna Steyr in Austria. So is John Krafcik the happiest man on earth right now?
Probably, yeah. Those are two heavyweights to be investing. The AutoNation thing, that really piques my interest.
Well, remember too, going back, AutoNation, Mike Jackson, who used to run AutoNation, is pals with John Krafcik.
They have a relationship already.
Yeah, they're 911 guys, as they'll tell you. They love Porsches. So anyway, they cut a deal a couple of years ago that AutoNation dealerships would service all these autonomous Chrysler Pacifica vans. And so there's been a relationship between the two. Mm-hmm. And AutoNation deliberately said, hey, if the world's going autonomous, we better learn about this. And so they must have liked what they saw.
Yeah, I think they do. AutoNation does like that relationship a lot, and I think it kind of plays to something. They need to broaden. Off the topic, they need to broaden their horizons from selling new cars at single-digit margins. So yeah, there is definitely a relationship there.
So what does this say about the viability of autonomous driving or autonomous transportation or autonomous transport or whatever it would be? I mean, is Waymo got something?
it would appear they've got more than others. I
agree
mean,
with-
that
yeah,
they're the
that's
leader.
a good way to put it. That's a good way to put
Yeah.
it. I think the autonomous driving world is sorting itself right now into sort of winners and losers. And Waymo, if there's going to be a winner, Waymo is probably going to be one of them. But there's conditionals on all of that. I mean, like winner meaning what and when, I don't know. It's taking a lot longer than, and we said this before, but it's absolutely taking a lot longer. And even a company as unbelievably rich as Google or Alphabet clearly has decided, okay, look, we don't want to pay for this all on our own anymore. We want to get some outside investors who have their own reasons for wanting to back this horse, and we'll get them to come on in and put their money on the table. There was an interesting, Cruise put out a chart yesterday, and they took the California DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles disengagement data, which everybody in the autonomous vehicle industry hates, right? Because it's simplistic and reductive, but that's exactly why I love it. And kidding a little bit, but anyway, it does sort of show that there, that miles between disengagements, there are two companies, Cruise and Waymo, that are they got a lot of miles before, in between times when the robot kicks out and throws up its hands.
Like a year's worth of miles.
Well, yeah, like 13,000. Yeah, exactly. And then there's everybody else. And Christie, to your point, I mean, there's, the shakeouts seems to be happening, and so yeah, they put their money on that.
Maybe to your point, Alphabet said, hey, we don't want to fund this all ourselves. Magna's not a stupid company, man. They're a really impressive company. I don't know what the amount of money that they put in to this is, but nonetheless, when they make an investment in Waymo, to me, that's really telling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if Waymo ever wants to have a purpose-built purpose-built vehicle like the Cruise thing,
Origin.
the Origin, something like that. Well, I don't know. Who knows? Magna would probably get the first meeting to build that, probably.
Well, think about this. So, two of the vehicles that Magna builds are the Jaguar I-Pace and E-Pace, and isn't? I'm trying to remember if it's the I or the
Jaguar.
E is going to that Waymo is.
It's the electric one. It's the electric one.
The I, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would not be the E because that would make too much sense to be the electric one, so they had to name it the I to just confuse
That's
people.
the only way I remember it. It's not the one you think it should be.
Right. So maybe there's something there. They're like, we want to really encourage them to, like, I don't know, buy more of these I's. And,
Probably. I'm guessing probably yes. I don't know.
So Christie, you mentioned Reed Bigland.
Yeah.
So he's the guy who was the head of Ram brand U.S. sales and FCA Canada. A guy had 3 jobs. He's actually being replaced by 3 people, which I find to be interesting. It's like, so after 22 years of dedicated service, according to FCA's communications, he's leaving the company. Is there any message here?
You first.
It depends on who you believe. I mean, he's saying that they're withholding his salary, I believe, and he's lost
Bonus,
millions of
yeah.
dollars.
Yeah.
But they're saying that because he's part of an investigation that they're withholding
Well,
his.
yeah.
And he's alleging that there was, it's not, we know Chrysler's admitted, right, or FCA has admitted that they engaged in this tomfoolery with the sales and shifting.
Yeah, he's
vehicles.
accused. He accused the company of basically docking his bonus because he cooperated with the federal investigation of their sales, flimflammery and or alleged sales, misreporting. And I guess the company has essentially admitted that they probably shouldn't have done what they did to make sales look like they were going up month after month. And I don't know, it made a huge difference, reality in the end of the day. But you're supposed to play it straight. But yeah, I guess it has to have been a super weird situation where you have a senior executive, in charge of like important stuff, who's basically at war with the company that he's serving. I don't know if he's coming to meetings or not, but there he was. He's in charge of these things, and at war with his own company. I don't know. Yeah, it seems like. But don't forget, Fiat Chrysler is going into a merger with PSA. I'm sure at some point, as the due diligence folks are going down the checklist of stuff that needs to get cleaned up before they go into the merger, this probably popped up. Said, let's resolve this, shall we?
Yeah. I'm stunned, A, they didn't fire him, B, he didn't quit. I was stunned this went on.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, Joe, it was a very awkward situation.
Yeah, well, I imagine, I mean, I don't know, but I'm sure that Mr. Bigland exited with something.
Well, they said there was some sort of settlement.
Yeah.
They didn't disclose the terms.
Right.
You know how you settle these, though. You just keep putting money on the table until he goes, okay, I'll do it.
You write a check.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's
You make it go away.
probably what had to happen. And yeah,
All right, so as we wind down, not every company reports sales anymore
Right.
on a monthly basis, but a few companies do report sales on a monthly basis. So there were some companies that did pretty darn well, like Kia.
Audi too, right? Yeah.
Mazda was up 19%, Hyundai up 16%, Mitsubishi 13%, Toyota 12%, Subaru 5.3%, Honda 4.2%. So now some would argue that basically you had an extra weekend because this was leap month last month, right? And then you had President's Day, and auto dealers always have big President's Day blowouts with the Uncle Sam hat and on and on and on.
doing this.
Yeah,
Super Bowl
Super Bowl. Yeah,
ads,
that's right.
potentially
Right.
motivating people to go into
So-
the dealership.
Is this a precursor to the rest of the year, or is this an anomaly?
no, it's not a precursor to the end because what the numbers you really want to see are the numbers for March this month, because the coronavirus angst and fear is really hitting now, like literally today. And I mean, if you have the state of California declaring a state of emergency, that's a huge market. Was it the size of France or something like that? It's a huge market, basically saying everybody needs to be very afraid. And so I guess we will see it right. It's the end of the quarter. We'll see some numbers, and it's unfortunate in a way if you want the industry to be healthy, because it would be nice if February's performance would continue. I don't have any confidence that that's going to happen. I mean, you just don't know.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Before the coronavirus hit, I said 2020 was probably going to be as good as 2019. I know none of the analysts were predicting that, but guess what? The analysts have been predicting a downturn for 3 years, and it hasn't happened. And I always said that in a presidential election year, as long as the economy's going good, sales never go down. But I totally agree with you, Joe, with the coronavirus. No, there's going to be an impact. There's no question.
It might
Sales will
be
go down.
down and then up, but
Right.
but that it's I think it's an uncertainty now.
Yeah. What do you think, Christie?
So coronavirus is going to keep people from shopping for new cars. Is that
That's the theory.
that's the theory? I don't know how many people are at a dealership at any given time. Anyway, it's not like a rock concert or a sporting event. I mean, I don't really know that that's.
They wish it were.
Yeah. I'll go with your theory, John. Same as 2019. Yeah.
So you still think it'll be?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to be all gloom and doom. I think March could be hurt by kind of the general sort of duck and cover sort of response to what's been happening especially in media, and also what's happening for real, in certain parts of this country. I mean, it's not just media; it's for real. But especially if the automakers decide, once things have cleared a little bit, to kind of hit the gas pedal and keep America rolling.
Well, remember, there's been a rate cut, too.
And there's been a rate cut.
And if they pass that along to consumers, that's going to open up, a lot of people who probably didn't qualify for a loan can now qualify.
Yeah.
So that could help. But, look, what's going to drive it all is if people cannot go and shop, and or if car companies can't make cars and trucks. That'll be the big impact.
That'll be a big problem, too. I mean, one last thing I'll say about this, and it seems to be happening in China, I think, is that the coronavirus is kind of accelerating the moves toward online and digital shopping. You don't have to you don't have if there's no reason to be afraid of going to a dealership, you still don't have to go.
Right.
And you can just get your car. And this is a different country. It's all whole different. You have a whole show about this, but I do wonder if that'll start to happen. It's like, look, you know what? These barriers to online shopping, forget about that. We got to. There's So
I like that thought.
Guy dropped your car off wearing a hazmat suit.
fumigating it.
Sanitizing it like they're doing in Korea with
Get the handy wipes over the steering wheel.
giant
Yeah.
sprayers.
Hey, we've got 2 phone calls. Let's bring in, we've got somebody asking about the BMW i4.
Hi, this is Guy from San Jose, California. I'm calling to get your opinion about the new BMW i4 that was announced a few days ago. It feels like BMW finally decided to stay true to the BMW brand core values, and maybe it will be the one to fight Tesla. Adrian Van Oudonk said in the press release, and I quote, "A perfect BMW that happens to be zero emission." I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. Thank you. And great show as always.
Yeah, thanks for that, Guy. You want to start, Christie?
I think it's the right tactic. I mean, this again goes back to GM's tactic of not making things weird and quirky, just giving people a great automotive design.
You don't think that front end is
Well,
weird
that's
and,
a little weird and quirky, yeah.
So
But-
basically we have
Work on that.
a 530 horsepower electric vehicle that has an alleged range of 270 miles.
So the range is a problem. I think
Not enough.
not enough. I think that's something that the German manufacturers seem to be wrestling with. I mean, they're not prioritizing range the way the Tesla is, and Tesla I think is, and we can argue all day about whether that's legit given actual use patterns, but Tesla has made range the new horsepower. So I don't know. But other than that, I mean, I totally agree with the caller's premise that. Compared to the i3.
i3.
Yeah, the i3.
Quirky.
Yeah. Please, more of that.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, so why? So let's take BMW. I mean, so basically, they have across the range they have a vast number of hybrid vehicles, right? I mean, they've basically electrified practically everything that they have within their whole efficient dynamics approach, right? But they just had the i3 as the full electric vehicle, and then they had the i8, which was a more of a conventional hybrid, not not an adapted
14 miles of range.
not an adapted like we're going to take a 5 Series and make it an electric version. Why are they behind the 8 ball here?
Because I think they're one of the latecomers. I mean, and you could argue they're really still not on board with this electrification movement. They were full on into diesel. That's where their dollars were invested, and I think you're kind of having to pull them kicking and screaming into the electrification
I
side.
think 5 years ago, Europe's plan for carbon was diesel. 5 or 6 years ago, and now it's not. And I think that. I mean, you've heard this stuff from the European manufacturers. I mean, Carlos Tavares, the European manufacturers are saying, really? We've got to go electric and not make any money? They're still fighting it. And I think they look at Tesla still, and they see a company that, by their lights is not financially strong and is not technically robust. And so, I think there's been a lot of resistance to sort of like the all-electric approach. It's hard for them to kind of throw away everything they know.
Yeah, let's see how it goes. I mean, I should say, sales of EVs in Europe are soaring. I mean, they're really up strong. But that's not enough for the auto industry, right? You really need volume, not just great percentage increases. And I still say the tipping point isn't just how many cars you can sell, it's how many cars you can sell and still make decent margins on. That to me is the real tipping point.
Okay, but we heard yesterday that they're going to make money. They said that they would make money.
Mary was kind of I'm not going to say evasive, but they were asked about profit, and she said, in fact, I wrote it down. I can tell you exactly what she said about it. Or maybe that was at the end of my notes, but she said something to she was asked about profit, and she said, that's our job, to do it. And she said, it's the path we're on. She didn't come out and say, we're going to be profitable with this right out of...
Look, I mean, we'll find out soon enough, I guess, but it's going to be darn hard for them to make 10%, 15% I mean, if you look at the trucks, it's probably even more than that.
Right.
Those kinds of margins, I mean, they have a 10% margin in North America, which is as good as it's been in ever.
Right.
And one of the best in the industry.
And one of the best in the industry, and it's probably as good. It's probably as good as it's been in 30 plus years. And yeah, if they went all electric tomorrow, would they have a 10% margin? I don't think so.
Right.
But their delta is like from going from losing 10 grand a vehicle in this space a few years ago, right, to maybe making 2 grand or 3 grand or whatever it would be. I mean, so but yeah.
Well, and as we've talked about before, Ford said when the Mach-E comes out, they're going to be making money right off the bat.
Right. Well, again, what I keep pointing out is that as long as you start at a MSRP of about $45,000, you can make a profit.
That's the key.
Anything below that, lots of luck. I don't think you can do it. Not yet.
Not yet.
Hey, we got 2 quick more phone calls. Let's bring Dale in.
Hi, John. This is Dale Leonard out of Cleveland, Ohio. I might have misunderstood this new Fiat 500 going all electric news story. I was under the impression that they were going to just ditch selling that altogether. Is this strictly going to be out of the country or in the country? Great show as always. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dale. Yeah. Anyone know the particulars of that?
I got to be honest, this has escaped my attention. So the Fiat 500e is
Going all electric.
reborn.
Reborn, all electric. Look, Fiat 500 ICE sales, at least in the U.S.,
Right.
are a disaster, an absolute disaster. And guess what? The electric version hasn't done well either. It's a compliance car. Sergio used to joke about how much money he loses on every single one. They weren't serious about it. They just need credits. That's why they're keeping this car.
I think they're serious about it. I think they're serious. I mean, they launched it in Europe. I mean, they did was a virtual launch that I think they might have been planning for Geneva. I think they're serious about it for Europe because, again, they have to be. Yeah. I'm a little unclear as to how hard they're going to push it in the United States.
Well, and you think about it, I mean, it's the strategy that the Smart 4.2 basically saying, okay, let's just go all electric. Maybe that'll help some sales. I mean, we'll try to do something. And
it's hard to. I mean, but to your earlier point, at the price point that a Fiat 500 has to be, it's really hard to make a buck or a euro. But I think in Europe they can maybe give it a shot.
Okay, one last phone call to close it out with Clem.
This is Clem Zarowski in Delmont, Pennsylvania. I have a question on all these fancy electronic devices that are going to be in all these cars. Are the aftermarkets going to produce this stuff that you could run down to your local auto parts when your car is 10 years old and get a replacement part? That's the part that concerns me about all this fancy electronic stuff in these cars. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for that question, Clem. You're right. I don't know.
We had John Warniak on the show last week from SEMA and basically saying that they're on board with this and that they're working with the OEMs to get the information that they're going to need to be able to service these things, I think.
Yeah, and the OEMs are talking about continually improving the car with over-the-air updates. The Tesla model. I was writing a Ford story earlier on their electrification plans, and there was a quote from this executive about your car is going to get better every week with our over-the-air updates. So
I think the risk to the aftermarket industry and possibly to the dealers as well is that, and I'm sure this is being worked out as we speak, that the over-the-air upgrade replaces a lot of aftermarket revenue. That instead of a part, you get an upgrade, a software upgrade. But yeah, I imagine they'll work something out. And I mean, if you can hot rod a car with a software upgrade, it's a different kind of SEMA, but it's still SEMA.
I think it's going to depend on the part and component. Let's say you have right now today a 15-year-old 7 Series BMW with iDrive, and let's say the chipset burns out. Where are you going to get the chips? And you're not going to get anybody to replace the chip. It's a module. You rip it out and you put a new one in. Well, they don't make those chips anymore. And I don't think the aftermarket's going to make that. I don't know. I think it's a really good question. OTA, over the air, is going to help solve a lot of stuff. But in certain critical components, Once it's out of production, that's it.
There'll be some guy who's got a Fry's catalog. He'll just like he'll find it. He'll just it'll be.
Yeah, there'll be a cottage industry of because there are like old amplifiers and other gear like that where someone's going to have new old stock iDrive chips.
Okay, well, we got to wrap it up. Joe, I know you got a call that you got to get to. So, hey, thanks so much for coming on.
Great to be here.
Great having you. Christie, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you,
Great
John.
discussion.
Thank you.
Well,
Great.
GM gave us a lot of material to work with
Sure
today.
did. They sure did.
So, Gary, let's do it again last week. No, last week I said there wasn't going to be a show this week. The reason there is a show this week is because of the coronavirus.
That's right.
Me and the whole crew were supposed to be out of town. That didn't happen. We had a good show, and we'll do it again next week.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, your journey, our passion. Borg Warner, propulsion solutions that support a clean, energy-efficient world. And by DIA MTS, for advanced manufacturing machinery and lightweight components.
Visit our website, Autoline.tv, where you can watch us live Thursday afternoons. Get your daily fix with Autoline Daily and in-depth analysis and interviews with Autoline This Week. There's all that and much more at Autoline.tv.